I am Moon, or more rather Moonjora's Mask, but Moon is a little bit easier to say. I am an artist. I've been an artist, God, I don't know how long. Too long. Too long. I do a lot of different things, emotes, illustrations. I created my own dating sim, which you can see that Pink posted the links for. And we do these art classes every third Tuesday every month, except last month we took a break because I was having some mental health issues, and I needed to take a little bit of a step back. Um, so these classes are completely free. For people who watch on YouTube, because I record every class and post to YouTube for later reference. We're doing this in Pinktopia, so if you want to be part of like the people asking questions throughout the class, that Pinktopia is the place to be, so you can ask all those questions, and watch it live, and of course stuff like that. Today we are talking about hands. Um, Hands are a very important thing to know as an artist, and it's also something that a lot of us struggle with. Um, Funny enough about hands, AI struggles with hands too, so you don't have to feel that bad. Even a robot can't do hands. So my goal tonight is to get all of you guys at least comfortable drawing hands, or at least like, you know, have some tips and tricks to pull out. Pulling up my notes here real quick. Let's see. Not to be scared of them, yes. And all of my classes I try to do thanks, Fig. I try to do classes that work for both digital and traditional artists. However, I do want to do like some painting software classes in the future, so those would be more for digital artists and stuff like that. But every class I generally try to have the same the same things that can translate well to traditional and digital. While I do a lot of digital art nowadays myself, I did do a lot of traditional art, so I am not a stranger to traditional art. Also, welcome in, Vixie. So good to see you. Okay, so stretch real quick. So I am going to. It's a little bit harder since I'm using my iPad now, so bear with me just a second here. Thank you. Um, I'm just gonna copy and paste some of the pictures that I use, so that you guys can see them in the chat. Um, but here is an easy way to break down like real hands. You'll start with wrong pen. Wrong pen. The way that I learned how to draw my hands is a little bit different than that, where I will start with this shape that's kind of like their shape, but as you guys who have been to classes multiple times, you guys know I like to dumb things down and simplify them, because it's just easier and it's easier to explain. And I should mention that my work, so sorry, my work flow is not going to be the same as your workflow. I'm giving you an outline to work off, to learn off of, so that you don't get so overwhelmed. Yeah, the box method. I like the box method a lot. Yeah, that's another thing we're doing for our Pinktopia peeps. We are doing a giveaway. I'm gonna draw you a nice little icon. If you tell me your non-alcoholic favorite beverage, mine is Mellow Yellow. Pink was making fun of me because I have Mellow Yellow cans all over my desk. So Pink will grab, gross. Shut up, Pink. Pink will grab all of your guys' names, and we'll do a wheel spin. Um, at the end of class. So make sure you stay and figure out if you get a cool icon by me. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, back to hands. So, one of the things that I like to do, again, we like to be simple. So, I will group my hands together, my fingers and stuff, but your thumb's not always going to be. Your thumb is its own entity. That's one thing I want you guys to remember. A thumb is its own entity. Thumb is different from fingers. So then let's say I'm going to do a relaxed hand. This is my index finger. And then grouping together, I always do my thumb had a mind of its own. So grouping it together is kind of like, I have a picture of one of my favorite things to do. This one. Grouping things together like that. It makes it easier for you to keep track of when you're doing your sketches. So let's say we're going to do one of the examples they have. We're going to group it together. And your pinky always sticks out. If you look at your hand, your pinky sticks out more than the rest of your fingers. So you get a little bit more freedom with your hands that way. So then that's a good outline for a hand, right? You can work with that and finish your other posing and such like that, right? So then once you're refining your sketch and stuff like that, here's where you can start, getting your fingers sketched out a little bit more. Right? And you have fingers. So Lunar, with finger proportions, okay, a tip that I say in every art class, look at your hand. Okay, let's all look at our hands, right? Some people, their middle fingers are longer than your pointer fingers, but then there's some people who have longer pointer fingers. Because of me having a longer middle finger, I will draw my middle finger longer. But also you can, just look at your hands. Your best reference is your own hands, okay? So I'm going to, let's see. Let me take a picture of my hand. And we're going to break down my hand. So long middle finger gang. Yeah, baby. Let me see. I'm going to do this pose. Something that's a little bit hard for us to break down. She's breaking her hand. Okay. Let me go to my Discord here. Nope. Save my picture of my hand. Also, desk reveal. Anyone interested in a desk reveal? I know. Okay. So I'm going to import our picture of the hand. Just a mountain of Mellow. I cleaned up the cans of Mellow Pink. That'll work. Okay. I'm going to lower the opacity and we're going to break down my hand. We're going to break my hand. Okay. So we're going to use... we are going to use the same little box method that we had, right? And this works at any perspective, any pose, okay? So now I'm gonna go healthcare worker on you guys. A lot of things that helped me when I was studying hands is the anatomy of a hand. So that is what your bone in your hand looks like. And this is all the muscles and the tendons and stuff like that. This is very important for you to know because you need to realize the limitations of your hands. If you do not realize the limitations of your hands, you're going to have a really effed up hand. That's how you get those weird wrist curves and stuff like that, right? So you need to make sure that you're familiar with the anatomy of a hand. I would strongly suggest studying anatomy, period, for any body part, just so that you have that practical knowledge, you know? So another thing is every finger has 3 joints. If you look at that skeletal hand that I showed you, there are 3 joints. And to make it a little bit easier, I will color code them. Let me color code them. So here's one. Here's another joint. And here's your last joint. So when you are bending your fingers, you need to remember those 3 joints.
Can I borrow you for a minute?
Okay, so sorry about that. He's so good. Anyway, this is a good chance. Do you guys have any questions about what I've gone over? Yes, I have big hands. I have very slender hands. Very slender hands. I have long, thin fingers. Let you guys ask some questions if you've got them. Slender hands for his slender mans. So these are going to be very important things to know. How I fix my hand. I don't know how to. I don't know. Yeah, a doctor. A doctor is a good place to start. So on the topic of each finger having 3 joints, the thumb only has 2. Your thumb only has 2, and you can see this in the way that my hand bends, right? So this is the last joint here, and then it skips a joint. Right? Makes sense, right? If you were to draw one of the finger joints bent, which one would be more natural? Because you don't always. So, hold on, let me look at my hand. So, the middle one clearly isn't going to bend on its own, right? The middle one doesn't hardly move. And then your first one, the red one here, doesn't usually, this only bends when your hand is bending. So the one that is more natural to bend would probably be that last one because it's easier to bend. And then everything else would follow. Does that make sense? It would be the red one or the green one. Shrug. Kinda? Okay. Let me see if I can find a reference of only one joint bending. 1 second. And then we can go over it. Joint bending. Yeah, absolutely you could. So from the pictures that I'm seeing, yeah, it would be the tip, that would be the easiest to bend. Um, but yes, if you want to sketch it out to show me what you're trying to say, that would also help. Um, so you need to get out of here. I'm going to erase that just a little bit. Okay. Okay. Anyway, back to breaking down my hand. So then we're going to go with the same, sketching out the joints here, the red joint. This is the wrong pen. Yeah, so this little part can bend a little bit, but not much. Just like Lunar said, it technically has that last joint, but you really don't see it work that much. So it's a little bit easier to think of it as the thumb only having two joints that you can fuck around with. Just sketching out these joints for you guys real quick, and then we'll get into how the hell to. See how my pinky is stretched out a bit more than the other fingers. There we go. That's our broke down hand. Right? Rooster pose. I wanted to find like a unique pose that wasn't like super hard, but like wasn't just a normal pose, just so that we could show a little bit different things. Okay. Wait to see what Ghost is trying to say here. Ghost has good questions. Now then, the breakdown tactic that I was showing, like the group together tactic, um, let's see, always see that. Yeah, it's more of a style thing, like a typical style that people will do when they're not so good at hands, but want to do a good hand. And you guys are going to know exactly what this pose is when I finish it. This is a very default hand. This is a very detailed hand. Like, people will do this hand a lot when they want to have a good yeah, you guys can see that I could just do it without the guidelines, but I've also been doing this a while. But yes, this is and that, like, we'll break that down actually. Let's break that down so you can see how that worked. There's our box. 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. And that's broke down. So if I did it like normal, you would see that I would start out with that. So then when I go through and I want to finish up my hand, I'm just going to follow my little guidelines that I made here, and remember that it bends right at these joints. It's going to bend. Then you've got your little, I call them webs. They're like the little skin between your fingers and your thumbs and stuff like that. I think that's actually what they're called. Uh, Then it bends down here. And now we are no longer bent. And that would be how you get that to work a little bit better. And then don't forget, on your hands, you've got your little knuckles. This is a style thing that I do, but you'll want to remember where they are when you do your shading and stuff like that. Remember your knuckles and add like some key way to remember that there are knuckles, because when you're shading, if you want to go super detailed, you're going to shade those knuckles like the echidna. Yeah, that's true. So then when I take away the guideline, you have a nice hand there. Right? So then let's say, let me find a good hand pose that I can do without going over a picture. And there's no shame in taking a picture, especially of hands, and then going over it and breaking it down, because that's how you're going to learn, is by practicing and referencing. And don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't reference things, because we as artists cannot survive without our references. While I'm looking for a hand, do we have any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. I want to find... to find one where we've got some bend. Okay, here we go. All right, we're gonna hold a cup now. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so let me send you guys the hand I am using as a reference. That is the hand we're about to draw. So we're gonna break it down into the circle. Okay. I'm trying to sketch it using the joints. I don't use the joints anymore. You guys just saw how I usually draw my hands. So this also utilizes foreshortening, which is a thing used in perspective. I would love to explain foreshortening to you guys right now, but I need to take a few classes myself on foreshortening before I am comfortable teaching it to you guys, because it is a lot of... it is definitely a harder topic, so I would like to research it more a little bit myself before I try to teach it to you guys, if that makes sense. Okay, so you're not gonna see the thumb. We don't see the thumb on this picture, right? Yes, sir. Yeah, foreshortening is its own perspective, and foreshortening is its own little class that I am not comfortable teaching yet. And don't forget to use the tools available to you guys who do digital art. You can use the tools available to you. Like you can see that I just, rotated the art. Okay, so I just sketched. Granted, I didn't do it perfect, but I broke it down the way that we discussed. Um, and I actually need to make the pinky shorter. And fix that. Edit that. And you will play with it, and you will edit it and work with it, and it's just a process. Right? That's a good a good start, a good breaking down the hand to make it a little bit easier to manage, right? I don't really know how else to explain it other than break it down and, you know, break it down into shapes that you can understand. That is my biggest advice is break it down into terms and shapes that you can understand. There is no right way to learn and to sketch. Art is all about finding what you like to do. Like, I have stylistic things with my hands that you aren't necessarily going to have. My best advice is to go through and look at the anatomy of a hand and just take some hands, break them down, and you're going to slowly learn how your fingers bend and how perspective between hands work. The best way that I can explain foreshortening and perspective right now is when so let's say you take a picture. You take like a selfie, and it's like you raise your phone up and you notice that the rest of your body is smaller the more your phone goes up, while your head is bigger. That's foreshortening because the bigger parts are going to be the ones that face the camera. And in art wise, it's the eye level. Your eye level is the camera, right? Does that kind of make sense? Thank you, Dreamer. Thank you. Thank you. All right, perfect. Okay. I'm going to open up for some unrelated questions. If you guys have some hands or some hand poses that you want me to try to break down for you, I'm more than happy to do that for you. Any other hand questions, now is your time to ask them. Oh, wow. My Clip Studio just saved that without me doing anything. Peace sign or fist, maybe. Okay. So, I'll tackle Ghost question first, and then Dreamer, I'll get to you in just a second. So, peace sign, I can actually do super easy without a reference. I used to do peace sign all the time. So let me let me do the peace sign real quick. So I'll do a peace sign from the front and from the back for you, Ghost. And also with your wrist, I know I haven't really talked much about the wrist. Your wrist, make sure you're paying attention to your hands to make sure that your wrist isn't bending in some stupid way. Again, be very, very watchful of your limitations, because when you aren't paying attention to your hand or your wrist limitations is when you get those screwed up hands, right? So Let me move this bad boy over. I'll do. Um, okay, so I'm gonna do a backhand first. Remember that when you're doing from the back, that you so this is when Lunar actually, this was great. This is when Lunar said that there are three joints in the thumb. That's when you'd utilize that third joint, because your third joint, the little pad of your thumb, is actually moving. And then you're gonna have your three joints here. 1, 2, 3. And remember that your hands always end off in a curve. And then the fingers that are bent, you're only going to see 2 joints of those bad boys rather than your 3 joints. But you know that there's another joint behind them that causes them to bend, right? And then if I lower the opacity of that and go over it, just in case you guys want to see a simple view of it. Okay, so that's the back view. Don't forget that your thumb has that little pad that kind of sticks out, right? Okay. And then we'll go back to this one. And this will be a front view. So your thumb isn't going to show from a front view, so you're going to have this little triangle boy here. And then you're going to do the same thing, except you're going to see all the parts you didn't see from the back view. We love a triangle boy, that's correct. Okay, now you're going to see your joint on the 2 bent fingers that you didn't see. And then with the pinky, it's going to lie a little bit lower than this hand because your pinky is smaller. So if you do a peace sign, you're going to see that your middle finger actually sits higher than your pinky finger. And that's just because they're smaller. And then we'll do our sketch to clean it up. Sometimes you can have this last little joint here stick out from the end, but you don't always have to do that. And then that would be how that would look without all the little things, right? Does that make sense, Ghost? Did that help any? Okay. Let me look up a fist reference because fists, I don't do that often. Okay. This will also be useful when you're drawing them like gripping something, you know, horny gripping. Yeah, one of my fingers doesn't bend all the way either because I fractured it when I was younger trying to catch a basketball. More more moon lore for you guys. Okay, same with the peace sign ghost. I'm gonna do inside it like a backhand view and a front hand view. Okay, Write that down, write that down. Okay. So we're gonna do a front view first. You're gonna have your little triangle boy again because your thumb is hidden behind the fist, right? And then the fist is really easy. You remember how the pinky just had the one showing? You can just add little squares. And then add your knuckles here, and you only see one joint with a fist. And then you can add like showing that your thumb is bending and stuff like that. Let me fix that. Okay. And that would be a fist. I'm going to raise this thumb just a little bit more. Okay. And then from the back, we do. You're going to have your one joint on the thumb that you don't really use that often. It's going to bend in here. But then your one hands are going to cover that a little bit. I really don't do an inside fist all that often. I'll clean this up in just a second, bear with me. Even my sketches are quite a bit messy sometimes. So you guys can see it a little better. There we go. You guys can see that breakdown just a little bit better. Yes, they are very fun to practice with. It's a great way to get yourself into like the skill set of speed sketching, because speed sketching is going to help you out a lot. Because you're going to learn very quickly how to break down hands, how to break down stuff. Oh yeah, no problem, Dreamer. Thank you for stopping by. I'm actually just about to answer your question. I'm so sorry. Frick. I'll quickly go over it for you before you leave, Dreamer. Femme hands are slender and the like yeah, the femme hands are a little bit slender. Like smaller, thinner, stuff like that, versus mask hands will have like a lot more markings. They'll be a bit more beefier and stuff like that, if that makes sense. Very, very speed run. If you want me to answer that question in DMs, just shoot me a DM whenever you're free, and I'll draw some stuff up for you to help. No problem, Dreamer. No problem. Anyone else got any other questions about hands? Any other suggestions for us to super quickly sketch up? Or did this help at least a little on how to break them down? Hi, Ari. I'm gonna take that as a yes, Ghost. I'm gonna take that as a yes. Thank you. I will say my hands are very simplistic. Um, uh, I simplify things, but my best advice is to study the anatomy of hands. Look at your own hands. Stand in front of a mirror and just play with your hands. See what your hands are capable of and transfer that to your art. Um and chibify the hands. Oh, absolutely. I'll show you guys how I used to do my hands because I didn't know how to draw hands. Um But this is how I used to do hands. I used to do 3 fingers. Like little chibi hands. Because I straight up refused to learn. That's how I used to do my hands. How to do hands skinny. So, you know how I've got mine a little bit chunkier, right? Let's see, tiny hands. In the name of hand practice. So, when you're sketching out your hand, you're gonna make everything a bit slender. And then when you're doing your breakdown, make it all smaller. Trying to. I don't know if that's more slender or if it's more if it's just smaller. But you references or references. Look at slender hands. Even if you just go on like TikTok, and you just like if you search up in TikTok hand references, there are people that will like specifically do hand references for you guys that you can take pictures of and go over. So if you're looking for a very specific hand type, I would also suggest doing that. Oh, did you know that I used my hand in my ring? I showed off my wedding ring unintentionally. uh, okay, if no one else has any questions, if I've missed it. If no one else has any questions, then I'm gonna go ahead and call the class good. Um, Thank you, Pig, and also thank you, Ari. Love you too. I appreciate you all being here. I know we didn't have a class last month, so I was a little nervous coming back. But I'm glad that I was able to come back and able to teach you guys again. Um,